Namaste. It's been a while since you've seen me as opposed to heard me. I wanted to read you a story that came to me at 5 o'clock this morning because it tends to be mornings where channeling happens the best with me. It is a story about women, about the feminine energy, so please, all I ask you is to listen to it with openness. Don't try and dispute it, debate it, find holes in it. Just listen. And men, although this is a story about a woman and a witch, it is a story that you should listen to, for it'll help you understand us better in a world where I feel women are very misunderstood. For your story, we know it has been written all through history. Our story has kind of stayed a little invisible. So enjoy it. I know it's a little long, but in a world where we get snippets which are very, very dangerous, it is very important for me to give you context so you fully understand what I'm trying to offer you in terms of knowledge. The Woman and the Witch. Where has the feminine energy gone? The young woman sat at the top of the mountain, finally having made it to the top. She could not wait to tell the men at work and in her life that she had succeeded, that she was as good as them, that she was valuable and capable, though truth be told, the climb had nearly killed her, and it was not something she wanted to do. But she needed to show them that she was not weak, because that is what it meant to be labeled a woman. She felt a warm breeze move through her, appearing out of nowhere. It swirled around her, wrapping her in love and warmth she had not felt for a long time, reminding her of her mother. As she turned to find its source, her eyes stumbled over a witch sitting cross-legged beside her. She was a wonder to look at. Curly black hair swaying with the clouds, dark eyes, brown skin like chocolate, and a smile that tickled her from the inside out. For a moment, she wondered if this was hallucination from the lack of oxygen up on the peak. I am real. I'm not a part of your mind where all ignorance sits, the apparition spoke. Are you a witch? How did you get here? Yes, I am a witch. But how I got here is not important. It is more important that I am here. I've been listening to your thoughts as all thoughts ride the element of space, the Akash, touching all those that encounter them. As I listened, I thought it was time to get some things straight about what it means to be a woman. The woman emerged out of her slouch, expanding into the rising sun, for she felt the answers that arrived to her struggles of being a woman in a man's world. Although they now had access to it, it was still theirs, for it had been theirs for as long as she could read into history. You are right, the witch answered her thoughts. But you may be surprised by the story I'm about to tell you. It is one where men are not bashed or punished for what they have done to us over lifetimes. Instead, our story. It is the story of the feminine energy. The young woman settled into herself and opened her mind and heart. Once upon a long time ago, I grew up in a man's world. A world dominated by my fathers, brothers, priests, uncles, as well as in every other facet of my life. From the stores I walked into, to the classrooms I learnt in, the history I was taught, to the men who ran the country, the laws, the systems, the money, as well as the men who defined traditions in society, hence my life. Even concepts such as success and failure that I strove to meet and avoid were defined by men, for men, in their world. These men were seen as strong in the source of my life. They provided nearly all the items that defined human security and survival: money, shelter, food, and so forth. Although it was my mother that held me, created me, and gave birth to me, it was men that held my life in their palm. As such, they were valuable, because without them, I may have been something, but my value was only what they gave to me, either through a dowry, a job, an income, or a marriage. Women in my world were seen as in your thoughts, physically and emotionally weak, naggers, emotional, wanting to talk too much, and a support cast in the movie of men. Movies that made men handsome rescuers that would liberate us, or sexy, cool cowboys and heroes that saved the planet and would save us as well. I loved men. They were almost godlike in my world. Of course I wanted to be like them. For the supporting roles in those movies were women who scrubbed, cooked, went through all sorts of pain, carrying and giving birth, who stayed in relationships and marriage they did not want, not because they were weak, but often because they had no choice. They were beautiful and sexy to look at, of course, for it was where their value lay, in being the supporting actress. The more beautiful they were, the more standing it gave to a man in his world. But there are few men, and if any, that looked at a woman and said, I want their lives. I want to be a woman. The stranger laughed out loud, hearing herself being echoed back to her. For a moment this shocked her. She had forgotten her own sound, and always listening only to the sounds of the men around her. But let me jump ahead, as mine is a long story, and soon the sun will chase you back down this mountain you have climbed for a man, rather than for yourself, even though your mind has convinced you otherwise. When I was about your age, I entered the path of yoga, determined to succeed at being a yogi. I was going to live it, practice it, experience it, and become it. It was a path that once only men took and still few women stepped onto. But I was seeking my worth, which eons ago had been defined by men, and therefore the only place I thought I could find it was in their world. As I began to ascend the path, teachers from the highest realms began to enter my life. They were all men, and not one of them looked or sounded like I did. They were all so comfortable and immovable in their purposes. They knew who they were, they had no doubts, and they were unshakable by anything slung at them. It was the gift of being a man in a world that did not question them, as they did us. A world where God was a man, and they were men. Although each of those gods had a consort that stood beside him, they for the most part were invisible, as I had become to myself and those around me. I began to ponder if I should be dressing like them, that changing my appearance would make me more acceptable. Should I get a turban? Should I swap my shorts for a kurta? Should I pray to their gods? Thus began my battle with acceptance and with myself. The young woman involuntarily allowed a gasp to escape her mouth, for she could not imagine the powerful being sitting beside her could ever be invisible in any world. I'm sorry, she said. I did not mean to sound my shock. Don't be. It is a part of my story, and there's no pain attached to it anymore. In letting go of the influence of those memories, I liberated myself from their pain. Now let me tell you, the battle internally to fit into that world by far exceeded the battle that I was taking externally. Every time I met those teachers in person, online, or even on social media, I found myself altering to be more like them. I found myself quietly begging for acceptance, for them to tell me that I had succeeded, that I was a yogi, one of them. Yet no matter how much my experience mirrored theirs, the wall remained. Yogi was a label that had been defined by them and therefore was inherently masculine in its energy. For it was the energy that had been grown and watered in the male body, so that now when boys were born, it was dominant, the masculine energy whose memory was held in all their cells. The feminine long ago disabled and submerged because it worked against them in the world they were creating. One of wars, conflict, battle, so they could play out their roles of saviors and rescuers. Although they encouraged me and answered my questions, many of them told me that I needed to find my own path, the one that was meant for me. Some went so far to use my desperation to get what they could from me, and then discarded me when I no longer offered what they sought. However, none of them gave me the acceptance I sought, because really, it was not theirs to give me, it was mine to give myself. Yet I continued the battle, shying away from the feminine energy in me that kept pulling me in a different direction. But that conditioning of seeing it as weak and suffocating blocked me from listening to it. I thought to be it, I would have to focus more on my external looks. I would have to be more passive, accommodating, and keep playing the supportive role. I did not know then I was confusing feminine energy with the role of woman that had been defined by, well, you know whom by now. As I dove deeper into the yogic path, determined to keep walking it, I was forced to break down all my conditionings, balance my energies by healing both my masculine and feminine energies. I had to truly listen to what was being whispered in me, in the silence of my meditations, and to surrender where it wanted to take me. The witch paused for a moment, absorbing the magnificent view as the entire planet seemed to lift in reds and oranges and purples. Its warmth, offering great unknowns to come, stopped her breath for a moment and allowed her to get lost in all the power that was being handed to her if she had the courage to take it. Because to do so, she would have to walk a different path from the well-worn one. The young woman watched the witch, transfixed by the beauty that was rising from the inside. She felt the witch's power turn on a light within herself. It was as if the sun was moving through the witch and into her. The breath began again, and the story resumed. With time, I began to witness and experience light, beginning to move through me into those that came to the mat beside me. I witnessed changings and healings that transformed my relationship with knowns and unknowns and with all living beings. As I continued to heal my feminine energy and move into it, a power began to well up from the base of my spine. It was gentle, soft, and yet strong. More importantly, it did not need anyone else but my own presence. It gave rise to creativity and creation that did not harm, was not conflictual or disharmonious with the universe, but instead healed. It was the power of Mother Earth. My connection with water began to expand into my connection with the earth. It gave rise to an ability to communicate without aggression, anger, or defensiveness, but rather with softness and strength that did not threaten. It was the fluid, transformative feminine energy of water, as well as that of the moon. My purpose began to rise, and it was not to be a yogi in a man's world, but rather a yogi and a powerful healer in my own world, created and defined by me in conversation with the universe. As the masculine energy in me healed, I was given the willpower to put in place all that I was creating on this planet without the dependency of a man. Instead, men became aids and supporters rather than definers and dominators. As I supported them in their journeys, not seeking to define it for them, but allowing them to define it for themselves, they came to play the same role in my world. Now they walked beside me rather than in front of me. They could have their world. It was theirs after all. They had built it and defined it, and in time, they would destroy it and then rebuild it again. It was who they were. It was not who I was. I was a powerful feminine energy who had arrived to nurture the planet, to heal those that lived with it, to guide others to find their gifts and connect to their true selves, so they too use their gifts to transform this dream we are all living to a place of beauty and coherence with the rest of the universe, to reflect what is above, below. As soon as I liberated myself from that world of men, I was free. I was free to just love them and accept them as they were, to observe their world but not have to participate in it for my worth anymore. It gave rise to a sensuality and sexual power in me that was not about sleeping with lots of men or with anyone, but it was an energy that transformed into light, that connected me with the beautiful soul that I was. It was beautiful and sensuous, and no one had to give that to me, for I'd given the gift to myself. I moved through my world now with grace and humbleness, with joy and gratitude. I did not respond to men as a man, but as a strong, kind, feminine energy. In time, the world stopped battling me because I would no longer fight it. As a result, it began to respond to me as I did to it, from a place of love, compassion, healing, kindness, all powerful forces because they all resonate at the highest frequencies that define the universe. It did not mean I allowed people to walk over me. Rather, I was able to set boundaries and speak up from a place of strength, not aggression or power, that lived on the subjugation of others. All the colors that bathed the sky, infusing themselves into the clouds and the tips of the mountains, began to transform into lighter versions of themselves. It was a transformation the woman began to feel within herself. It had begun to give herself permission to be the feminine energy that she was, to not fear stepping out of the world she spent all her time battling, but instead to step into a world where she could create and she could be who she wanted to be. You know, there is a reason witches, high priestesses, healers were burnt, why women were locked away. It is because we are powerful. We are earth, we are water, we are the moon. We are the creators of life. What men did, they did not do out of hate, but out of fear of that power. When we fear, we seek to control and dominate that which creates fear in us. But there's no need to fear those who truly sit in the feminine energy in its purest form, influenced by no one or nothing but consciousness. Well, unless you keep harming it. Then like the earth and the oceans, it will rise so that it can come back into balance. There is magnificence and brilliance in the feminine energy in both men and women. But our focus in this moment is not on the energy in men that has long been buried, but that which women have denied themselves for so long. That which has been robbed from them in how it has been defined for them. The witch turned to the woman and radiated a smile so large it nearly swallowed up the mountain on which they sat. Come into your feminine energy. Find the healers, the tools such as yoga, Tao healing, to reconnect to you, to that which you are. A powerful creator arrived here to shed all your luggage and reconnect to your true self, the platform from which you will be freed from this battle so many of you are waging with yourselves and with men. In their world and in your own internal world. Be that feminine energy because you are amazing and powerful. You have just forgotten it. But remember, when I say power, it is not the concept defined by men. It is the power of creation of healing. For after all, life grows within you. You are the conduit for existence. Lastly, before I fly out, the witch's voice moved to a whisper as she turned from viewing creation that lay itself bare before her to the young woman who had grown beside her. You and your kind have begun to shy away from having children, seeing it as a burden, a hindrance from having it all in a man's world. I know this because it is the reason I chose not to have children. Bring back value to yourselves for giving rise to life. Define the spectacular performance as you want, a performance where somewhere along the line it began to be written and directed by men. Don't ask others to give it value. You give it value. It is yours. Remind yourself that you don't always have to be the star. Sometimes your stardom is seen in your creation. That which created this universe does not show itself, for that creator is everywhere you look. Now that is humble. Take these words with you and make them yours. You are a powerful feminine energy in which sits passion to nurture, heal, and to create in coherence with everything. You have a gift. Each of us does. It may not be healer or witch, but it is something that is unique to you and beautiful. One thing you have, all feminine energies have, is the ability to communicate, for you are communicators. When communication does not exist in the world, what rises in that vacuum is isolation, conflict, war, depression, sickness, loneliness, and a complete lack of harmony from the cellular level to the level of the universe. My greatest gift has been my ability to communicate who I am and what I am. I don't expect others to rise to my level, for I am able to drop to whatever level I need to so often so the other can hear me. As the witch finished her story, she slowly began to withdraw inwards, allowing the elements to fill the space that her words had expanded into. The girl, knowing that the time had arrived, stood up and spread her arms, embracing herself in her place in this world. She closed her eyes and filled herself up. She knew that by the time she got to the bottom of the mountain, she would not be the same person that clambered up it. For she had stepped on the path of connecting to the powerful feminine energy that she was. She could feel the clanks of locks opening and freeing her. As she opened her eyes and turned to the witch, she was met with space. She laughed again, this time listening to herself. She no longer feared loneliness, as the witch had transformed into a love, and a part of her now sat in the woman's heart. A reminder in every heartbeat that being a woman was a gift, maybe the greatest gift of all. Namaste. Thanks for listening to the story. If you're new to this channel, this library, please subscribe. Not asking you from a place of ego, for I've worked hard to disable that. But really, the more you subscribe to good, the more good will rise to the top on social media. And that, even that, will create a shift in this universe. Have a fabulous day. Bye.